Rev up your engines!
Well, here we go with Hyundai and bad quality. Hyundai is recalling 281,000 North American vehicles because they might explode. Yeah, I'm not making this up. It turns out that they can't even make the seatbelt pre-tensioners right. When you hit something, fulcrum inside goes out and locks it in place, so you're not just locked in place, you can move around. You know, the Americans have to be comfy, right? Well, they couldn't make these stupid things right. People have been making them for decades, but for some reason, they couldn't, and the things may just explode. And then project metal fragments. One guy got a bunch of them stuck in his legs. 2021 to 2023 Elantras and 2021 to 22 Elantra hybrids. Now their fix is a real crapper. They're going to secure the pre-tensioners with a cap. That kind of reminds me when my old man had a Chevy and they recalled them because the motor mounts were breaking, and their fix was not replacing the motor mounts. No, that would cost too much, right? What they did was they put a little chain on each motor mount on the side, so if it broke, instead of the engine falling, hitting the ground, the chain would hold it up. You still got a problem, but they're not going to replace all these seatbelt assemblies. It would cost them a fortune, so they're just putting a little cap over them. Who knows? Maybe they'll have to recall it because the caps won't work. Who knows? Just another cheap fix by a Korean car company. The NHTSA found out that one guy was in a wreck, fragments into his leg. Well, supposedly, you know, it's all in court, so they always have to say supposedly. Nothing exists anymore until it goes through the court system and the lawyers get their cut of the action, right? Well, but they got to recall all these, and you can put a little cap on the end of it. If you got one of those, be careful not to stop fast or get in wrecks because it might explode and knock a hole in your leg. Another example of great Korean car quality. Patrick Terry says, Scotty, I just bought an F-150 that had to be factory ordered. I waited 6 months. After 400 miles, smoke is coming from the engine. The dealership says it's a broken oil separator hose. Says it's rare in brand new vehicles. Should I be concerned? You waited 6 months, you drove 400 miles, it started leaking oil. To me, that says their quality is like, you know, they're always battling all these big manufacturers. They want to pay the workers less and less. Well, the workers are putting the stupid things together, and if they're not paid right, they're not doing a good job. The quality is getting lower. If you didn't lose oil pressure, it wouldn't hurt anything. But if your oil light ever came on, or if you got a fancy one that's got the oil pressure gauge and you saw the oil pressure gauge drop down, it could have done some damage to the car as it was leaking out of there. It just depends on how much was leaking and did you lose oil pressure. If you lost oil pressure, it could have damaged it already. If you haven't, it wouldn't. If you lost oil pressure, then you could have problems further on the line. I would get it in writing. When they replace the oil separator hose, right, get it in writing. We replaced this leaking hose. Have a bill. So then if something goes on with the engine, because of lack of lubrication, you can say, well, yeah, that leaked because you didn't build it right. Now you're going to have to fix the engine too. Get it in writing. Get a receipt. Don't, oh, we fixed it free. Don't worry. We're not giving you a receipt. Don't listen to that crap. Get it written down. Because I've had so many customers that, oh, the dealer said, oh, we fixed it. Don't worry about it. And they don't get a receipt. And then later, hey, you did, oh, we didn't do that. We don't have any record of that. Always get paperwork for that stuff when they mess around with it. Especially warranty work on a new vehicle. Get it in writing. P. Manville says, I got a 2013 Buick Verano. The infotainment system malfunctioned. It's got 178,000 miles. I love the car, but the infotainment system was shut off. I don't want to go to the dealer. Help. Let's start with the absolute simplest thing. Get your battery load tested. Auto parts stores do it. Mechanics do it. If you don't trust people, you go to Amazon, you can buy a battery tester. A decent one is like $59 these days. They used to be $800, now you can get them for $59. Test it yourself. All cars are computerized. If you lose too much voltage, the battery's too weak, it gets below a certain parameter, the systems go nuts. It could be as simple as either your battery is worn out or the battery terminals are loose or corroded, had corrosion. Take them off, clean them, put them back on, you know. Also have the alternator load tested when you have the battery, because the battery and alternator work together. So it could be a combination of two of them. That's normally what it is. Now, if it isn't, it could be something else, relatively simple. You could have a bad ignition switch. You turn the ignition switch on, starts the car. The switch is electronic. Sometimes when it breaks down, it starts shutting power off to certain things. Then the lights will come on and your infotainment system won't work right. So it could be as simple as an ignition switch too. But it's really easy to check the battery and alternator. So start there and make sure the terminals are tight and not corroded too. Before you start getting into, oh gee, man, I'm going to have to replace that whole computer infotainment system, which costs a fortune, and it may not be the problem. Method Man says, hey, I got an '08 VW Jetta, 2-liter. When I start the car in the morning, it hesitates to turn on. It's weird, because if I turn the car off for 10 seconds, turn it back on, it runs fine. It could be a fuel pump problem, but I can hear the pump priming when I turn the key on, so I'm confused. Well, it's a Volkswagen. There's a zillion things that can go wrong wrong. Those things are such money pits as they age. But don't use your ears to analyze fuel pumps. They can make noises. They cannot make noises. The only thing that matters is the pressure that comes out. Get a fuel gauge. Hook it up to the car. Try starting it. See if it's got the right pressure. If it doesn't, replace the fuel pump. The only thing that matters is the actual pressure that comes out. If the pressure is wrong, it can do exactly what that's doing. But of course, a lot of things can do that. You can have a problem with the mass airflow sensor that Jettas are known for. You might want to clean your mass airflow sensor. Watch my video, make your car run better with a little spray cleaner. Shows how you can clean it. Could be that. Could be a lot of things. You have to test the pump. Don't go by ears or noise. You got to go by the pressure that it's putting out. The only thing the computer cares about is the pressure. It's got to be right, so when it sprays through the injectors, it sprays the right amount of fuel. If the pressure's wrong, the fuel will be wrong, and it'll go wacky. Start by pressure testing it. Con Jelly says, why does a car run rough when an intake manifold vacuum line is disconnected? It runs rough because it makes the car run too lean. Lean means you either don't have enough fuel or you got too much air. And of course, when you take a vacuum line off the intake, it's sucking more air in. So you have too much air, not enough fuel, and it'll run rough. And often when you do that, the engine will go up and down. And the reason it goes up and down is because the computer sees it's running lean and tries to make it richer, but then it makes it too rich, and then it's got to lean it out. So it keeps going up and down. The computer goes, give it more gas, less gas, more gas. It gets confused and goes, because it keeps trying to compensate for the problem that exists because now you have too much air going into the engine. When you plug it in, then it's a restricted flow, so the computer doesn't have to do any compensation. Computers compensate for everything in a car. Normally it's tiny little bits you never notice because it does things like 1,000 times a second, right? And you never notice it. But when you pull a vacuum line, that is such a radical change that it'll keep making it go up and down because it's trying to compensate for too much air coming into the engine. Well, here we go. The corporations have paid off the politicians in North Carolina. North Carolina has just taken out the right to repair bill in their legislature. Massachusetts had passed one. Now, this one wasn't for cars, but it's related. The farm equipment. They were doing a 2022 Farm Act. Of course, the farmers all want the right to fix their own tractors. They can't get the software, they can't get the parts, and they got to take it to the dealer and they get reamed. It's bad enough you take your car to a dealer and get reamed. Imagine taking, a quarter, $500,000 farm equipment and, the bill they're going to give you to fix that, right? Somehow the North Carolina Senate leaders, the big boys got to them. The people are selling the equipment. I'm sure the corporations that build them, and the poor farmers are getting screwed over because they took it out. Oh, that's not going to be in there. We don't really give the farmers the right to repair. Blah, blah, blah. They pretend they care about farmers, but they don't give a crap because they're being paid by the corporate people. So obviously, they got to the North Carolina leaders to take it out of the bill. So now the farmers won't get the right to repair. It's just kind of disgusting. They generally, most of them spend every night of the week going to fundraising to get reelected. Who do you think gives them funds? These corporations. The farmers aren't giving them money, right? But the corporations are. And so they've taken out, and the poor farmers are still going to be at the mercy of these giant corporations, the ag corporations that can charge them whatever they want to fix the vehicles. Back in the day, of my grandfather's day, they fixed their own stuff. They had their own welding equipment. They had everything. A farmer was a jack of all trades who could repair just about anything because it was mechanical stuff in those days. But of course now, they're all computerized. They have all kinds of chips and softwares. And these companies who build them don't want them to be able to fix their own vehicles. Skylark17 says, should I rebuild the manual tranny in my 2010 Subaru Forester? I got 175,000 miles. I get a grinding metal sound when I press on the clutch. And the guy says it's going to be $3,700 to replace the bearings and seals inside the transmission. Should I do it? What should I do? Go to another mechanic. Normally, if you only get a grinding noise when you push on the clutch, that's the clutch itself. The throwout bearing, the pressure plate, something's grinding, and you just need a new clutch. That's normally what it is. If the guy is right, the main shaft bearings could be gone on the transmission, and when you step on a clutch, the main shaft starts rattling because the bearings are gone. It would need rebuilding. The Subaru standard transmission is pretty well made. Their automatics are crappy. Rather than spend $3,700, I say go to a junkyard. Get a used transmission. It's a standard transmission. They don't go for that much money, and I would install a used one rather than pay some guy $3,700. You get a used one for $400 or $500. Put it in yourself. Watch my video how to put a clutch on your car. It's the same thing, only you also replace the transmission and the clutch. Like I say, go to another mechanic. It may only need a clutch. Most of the time on those, they just need a clutch, especially if they only make a noise when you step on the clutch. Then the throwout bearings rattling around. So have another mechanic check it out before you shell out any money. It may just need a clutch. So if you never want to miss another one of my new car repair videos, remember to ring that bell.